Hello, thank you for joining us today. My name is Laura Curtin. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Strategy here at ATR International. ATR International has been around for 32 successful years, and we are a recruiting firm placing talent across Fortune 500, Fortune 50 industries across the nation in the technical space, engineering space, and office professional. And with me today is our very own Angelique Alvarez, who is the head of supplier and diversity and inclusion here. And joining us is Ashley Piper. Ashley's the strategic sourcing and operations partner with ASML. She is amazing. And Ashley, thank you so much for being here. I wanted to see if you'd share a little bit about your role.
Yes, thank you, Angelique and Laura, for having me. I am excited to be able to be on the call today. I represent ASML and diversity and everything in between that I'm passionate about, from recruitment to talent attraction and retaining talent of diverse backgrounds. So my job here at ASML, if you don't know, is the leader in the semiconductor industry. We're the global manufacturer for all of the machines that make microchips. We have an exclusive technology called extreme ultraviolet lithography, which is a technology that allows for companies like Intel and Samsung to make their products faster and more efficient and more green. So our machines and the people that work for our organization, they kind of have, if you will, the big footprint and how technology progresses forward. And how I fit within this organization is within the talent acquisition team, where I am dotted line reporting into the diversity sector, as well as doing a deep channel discovery and implementation for bringing diverse talent into our recruitment pipelines. And so pretty much it's a great role that is allowing me to hybrid between the two. And really at this moment, focusing on how ASML comes out of the pandemic, retaining diverse top talent through programs, both internally and externally.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ashley. It's such an honor to have you. You know, it's just so amazing how full circle this has come. You and I go back. Ashley, fun fact, used to work for ATR, before her role many moons ago. So it's really exciting to see how far you've come, so much that you've accomplished. Congratulations on all of your success. Angelique with ATR, as Laura mentioned, I am head of supplier diversity and inclusion here. A lot of our initiatives internally, which we've had for over a decade, as a diverse supplier, as well as internally having, internal staff, primarily 90% women in leadership and over 51% of our internal employees diverse. So this conversation sits home with me. We've had, in my role, I've been extremely dedicated to making sure that diversity is at the forefront of ATR. Thankfully, we have the commitment from our CEO at the top level, which is so extremely important for most companies in order to really make moves and strides within diversity. So Ashley, I'd love to just jump into this conversation. I'd love to learn, what ASML is doing right now, which you feel sets your company apart.
Yeah, ASML, I think the fact that our technology is so underpinning, like as far as we used to have a slogan that our tech company, we're the largest tech company you've never heard of. And so if you can imagine, not only is it sometimes difficult to have volume of folks that are applying for our jobs or coming to our events, but also we have to do a lot of the education piece of who we are and what we do. But once you learn about who we are and what we do, it's like you're hooked, right? Because if you were to join our organization, you would learn something that no one else in the world is learning besides those that are joining our company, especially on that EUV technology front. So with that in mind, from a diversity lens, I'm proud to say that after the George Floyd incident, ASML truly stepped up in a lot of factors within the D&I space. And so one of the things that ASML has done is set themselves apart, because we know that diversity and inclusion is truly a journey, and certain companies are at the forefront of the discovery, and some of them have been in the D&I space and having that embedded culture for 20 plus 30 years. So ASML has set themselves apart recently by hiring a D&I leader, which I'm extremely excited to be able to, again, dotted line report into her and work with her. Her name is Lee Wills, and she comes to ASML from Sony and from Qualcomm. And so she's coming in with quite the lens and experience to really help lead ASML forward and be, if you will, the captain of that ship. There has been a strong push recently for how do we build analytics for our employee base in order to even figure out where are we at currently. ASML HR analytics has been something that is, I would say, based on our systems, we haven't had the best systems in order to pull that type of data. And I'm excited to see that ASML has put a big push in that within the HR lens. And I think that the other thing specifically here that's been a good step in the right direction of our journey within D&I is that ASML approved this year a employee resource group, the first employee resource group of our company in the United States. And that employee resource group is called Shades, and that's the BIPOC employee resource group that I co-founded and that I'm also chairing at this current time. And I think that that was a big step for ASML. They didn't even know, we've had clubs in the onset of George Floyd, but after George Floyd, I think they realized that there is a space and opportunity for that. So I'm proud to see that ASML has done that. And they're also building out an employee resource group network. So building out a space where our employees can come and build their own groups similar to Shades to be able to find their safe space in their community and support. And then I would say, one of the other things that I'm seeing ASML do as far as setting themselves apart is TA processes. Like TA is ultimately in collaboration with our US communications team. The two of them are kind of working hand in hand. Recently, ASML hired or is hiring a specific marketing recruitment partner to be marketing and recruitment kind of dotted line, similar to what I'm doing between dotted line recruitment operations and diversity. So to see that there's a true, like, if you will, pyramid approach to all of us being connected from marketing to diversity and recruitment, I think that hybrid approach is truly important. And ASML started to do that this year to set themselves apart. And I'm excited. I mean, it's the very beginning of the journey, but I'm excited to see how these three departments or three sectors can pull out some of the most successful diversity programs and initiatives.
Wow, Ashley,
Fantastic.
Incredible things happening over there. What do you think is the biggest thing holding organizations back in general from really creating a diverse workforce?
Mm-hmm. So the list is quite long in my opinion, and I think that that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that we have a lot of progress and work to do, but progress to be made. And the reason I say that is that my connection to diversity and inclusion really started from my mother, who Laura and Angelique, you both know, Sharon Piper Diggs, who was a very well-known diversity inclusion executive and powerhouse for 15 plus years at Medtronic before her.
Amazing woman.
Thank you. And growing up in that household and growing up watching the impact that she was able to make and trailblaze within this space, I did see a lot of the hurdles that she had to overcome. And I've seen a lot of the work that she did then kind of being in the forefront now, right? So with that being said, I've seen what was a focus of hers to prioritize in corporate America 20 years ago, that just now I'm starting to see companies making the priority now. So that's why I say the list is quite long, but there's got a lot of progress that could be made. So based on my knowledge bank, based on my passion, my research, based on my experiences, right? And I say my experiences also based on my generation. I'm a millennial, right? I am a Black woman in corporate America. So this is where I say, this is my perspective on what's holding, corporations back from having that diverse workforce. One, if you don't have the investment in the D&I space, I think that that's one thing that companies are missing greatly. If you haven't dedicated yourself to have an Angelique at your organization to lead the D&I initiatives, and also to Angelique's point, having the CEO and executive committee and board members on board with why diversity and inclusion is important, there's going to be a gap if it doesn't come from the top down, unfortunately. And so I do think, to Angelique's point, I mean, man, ATR, you said 90% leadership diversity?
Women in leadership roles, yes. And over 51%, obviously there's a portion, non-disclosed that are diverse. So we make it,
yeah,
we've dedicated, and, I'm sure your mom is really proud of all that you're doing. And it's just incredible for you to be doing what she's doing. I mean, you don't think of that when you're younger. And so for you to have this natural born talent and passion for your role, big things. ASML is extremely lucky to have you leading this in your ERG group.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. And so to that point, again, the progress the ATR is making and the road that we're stepping into at ASML and is really this D&I space and funding it. And again, top-down diversity in the conference rooms where leadership is having these discussions about workforce planning or what we're going to do as far as how we're going to give back to our local communities, or how we're going to get involved, getting your engineers out of the fabs and into the community in order to build the pipeline for the future for STEM students and diversity is, I would just say, just the gamut of having a D&I COE. Analytics, as I talked about, that's one of the struggles that we're seeing, but also I feel it is something that is extremely positive at ASML, that they are having a focus on how do we find out where we're currently at. So like you said, kind of that undisclosed information of gender or ethnic diversity. I think that their companies have an opportunity, if they don't have, if you will, some type of safe space to where folks feel like at the time that they're hired, you want to move as many folks into being able to disclose how they define their culture. So I'm seeing that there's a bigger, in a lot of companies, there is a little bit of a larger percentage of folks that are checking the box of, do not disclose. And that can even be from, veteran status or sexual orientation. And I think that, that's a bigger picture there, but I do think that a company, if they have a D&I culture, and it's also something that's represented from the onset of an interview process with the diverse interview team, then this is going to set the tone that this is a safe space and that your analytics will help us drive a better D&I culture. So I would say from an analytics standpoint, a lot of focus around that. If you don't have it, that's probably going to drive away. It's creating the hurdle of having a diverse workforce. And I would also say from attracting talent, I've learned a lot about how we collaborate a lot with marketing on how we can do that from a lens of ASML it's the largest tech company you've ever heard of. So there's not only a gap to find folks, like I said, but to specifically find target diverse segments. We've had a little bit of challenge there. So I see it as an opportunity for companies to, one, have a lean interview process. If you have a process that can go from having 3 people in one interview to having, if you're maybe in a different department and have someone go through 8 interview rounds, and on top of that, there's not any diversity within the interview teams, that's going to be a hindrance. It's going to definitely deter a diverse talent from accepting your positions, because
excellent advice.
Your interview teams look is kind of a representation of your organization. Investing in sourcing and have a dedicated sourcing team. I think that from a recruitment lens, there are some companies that think that recruiters have, especially full cycle recruiters, if the company is at a capacity of hiring high volume requisitions, a lot of recruiters don't have the time to source. And so having a dedicated strategic sourcing team, I feel, is very important in order to build talent communities, engage with those talent communities. And again, you kind of have the engaged candidates at your fingertips if you actually build a talent community with a strategic sourcing team. And that comes from going out to national diversity conferences and then pulling them into maybe a CRM of kind of approach, and then keeping up with those folks so that when a position is open, you have a community already of diverse talent that already knows who ASML is, versus going to LinkedIn and having to start from scratch.
I know you mentioned in the past, and we've connected, that being an attractive company for diverse talent is also, extremely important, making sure that everyone's, accepted, respected. I mean, there's so many different, things that make someone want to work for a company. But, let's talk about like after being hired, right? After attracting that diverse talent, what can an organization do like ASML really to retain employees?
So far as retention, I would say my line on this is after post-pandemic and post-George Floyd, and also where we're at with the market, the workplace, and the generational representation in the workplace. The millennials, I think, are probably going to be, or maybe in the next 5 years, we will be representing 85% of the workforce. And then Gen Z is after us. And as we've seen, Gen Zers are totally going to force and require companies to be not only talk the talk, but walk the walk when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So retaining, I would say, it starts with safe space and allyship communities. So it's great to have employees that are of BIPOC, or when I say BIPOC, I mean Black, Indigenous, and people of color employees that feel like, okay, I have a space where I can go be myself and be around like-minded people, but to have allies within your programs that are infused and actually are aligned to the goals and to the vision of the company, that, in my opinion, has been one of the most critical aspects of retaining talent, as well as developing programs for high performing employees. If you're waiting for an employee to, for example, step into a promotion, right? If they don't have programs to help them learn how they should promote, I think it's just being proactive with how you develop those that are high performing, and make sure that those that are in those diversity, those high performing HIPO programs are diverse. So giving them a seat at the table to grow, clear and successful career growth tracks. I know that I feel like that's something that ASML is focusing on, especially with we're going to be implementing a new one HR system. And with that, there's going to be a lot of ease to find internal opportunities for internal mobility, as well as for, if you will, being able to see where can my career take me. If that's not easily seen, then it's hard for someone to even own their development, right? And own their development specifically on a annual review, because it's hard to see where you can go next. And then internal mobility, so building versus buying, I think that's critical. If the company is opening a position and they haven't looked internally first, and I mean really looked and tapped on the shoulder of those HR business partners, the different sectors, to figure out if there's someone that's ready for promotion before looking externally, that's a big miss for opportunity for not only diversity, but inclusivity within the business and organization. And then again, I think also holding the business accountable and having diversity goals that are set from top down and within the annual reviews. So hiring managers and employees should all have a hand in making sure that the company is really driving a D&I culture.
I agree.
Well said.
Even ATR, it's one of the things, although we've had a program for, over 10 years, like ASML, there's always so much work to be done, trainings to be done, stats to pull, goals to meet. So thanks so much for that advice, Ashley.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's particularly true what you mentioned, that new generations are rising up. The landscape is changing, the workplace is changing. And in order to stay current, companies are having to change as well, because the generations that are rising up will not stand for things to be the same. It will change. So that being said, I wanted to ask you, what would be really the best piece of advice for companies looking to start a diversity initiative program? What type of advice would you give?
Mm-hmm. Well, all the lessons learned that I spoke of. Right. If I could package it though, I think the biggest advice, if you're looking to create this kind of environment for your business, I would challenge, I know ATR is similar with ASML, I would challenge the companies to start to publicize their diversity data. I think it's very critical, because if we don't know where we're at with numbers, and if we don't know, and I'm talking about per market, right, per industry, if we're the only company representing or publicizing our ethnic data, then how do we know where we're at as an industry and where we need to really drive or pull that lever? Like, I think that's very critical. I mean, we can, if we can show gender diversity, we should be able to show ethnic diversity. I personally, I don't know if you all know, but I don't know why that seems to be what it is, and that gender is so publicly publicized. Is there, I guess I want to pose the question to you, is there something that hinders us from being able to publicize that?
I could take that. No, there really isn't much hindrance. I think that there's a lot of, I guess, apprehension making anything public with companies. But I think as we progress, as times are changing, I think it actually helps companies more the more transparent they are. Yeah. You know, even if it's annual revenue, where we're at internally, I think it could actually attract talent if the companies do demonstrate that it is a diverse workforce.
Absolutely.
And really set that example for, you know, companies that are beginning, right? It's our job to really set the tone and really, you know, showcase all that we're doing and all that has to be done, and, you know, what we've done and what we've done after that, I think is so extremely important.
Yeah. And so that's really why I was curious, right? Because I've heard different things from different companies, right? And in different diversity forums. It's just a question that I wanted to just ask, because that's something that I really do think it will be the lever and the needle that can push us to holding ourselves accountable. It can attract the right people to your company. If a company sees that there's lesser than, it really, in my opinion, as a candidate or a prospective candidate, if I do see that there's lesser than, if I'm the type of candidate that has always been a trailblazer, you may attract trailblazers to your company because they see that there's less of my culture there, and I can go and trailblaze at that company. So that's why I would say publicize that data, because it can attract the right people. It could deter, but it could also attract some very high performing folks. Community outreach. If you know, you really want inclusive culture, diverse culture, I've seen a request come from a lot of the Shades members. Can we go out to these high schools that are underrepresented, and can we give back to those, to introduce those that are probably less likely to know what electrical engineering is? And I think that if the company is truly giving back to the community and using the diverse people within their company, that is going to stir up and continue to embed an inclusive and diverse company, as well as our allies, right? Using people of color and your allies to go out and do this community work. It's going to keep stirring the pot, right, for D&I. Bigger footprints and sponsorships and scholarships. I don't know about ATR. I know ASML is doing a lot of that with social responsibility and trying to find where do we want to have bigger footprints, and making sure that we have ourselves out on main stages and we're not just at a booth at the conferences anymore. Really making sure that, because there's a gap between who ASML is, what we do, and the underrepresented groups, we're going to have to do more to connect the underrepresented groups to how we work and why they would want to come here. So bigger footprints, bigger stage representation. And then I would say, of course, ERGs. I am the chairperson for one and co-founded one, and I truly see the benefit of having an employee resource business and network, not only for people to have a safe space to come and talk and discuss, but for our allies to ask questions, and for our allies to get development on how they can be a better ally. I've learned recently with our LGBTQIA+ group, they just did a Pride Month event, and that they talked about how you can be an ally. You don't necessarily have to be aligned to, you don't have to necessarily find identity within what we represent, But if you feel like you want to support who we are, then this is how you can do it. And it was as simple as just, hi, what are your pronouns, right? What are your pronouns? And just simply asking that is making you an ally. And I think that is something that, again, infuses a culture of inclusivity. And then finally, biggest takeaway, of course, is top-down buy-in on why diversity and inclusion is important.
It's so important to have those conversations with your internal staff, and really when it comes to pronouns, not being so fresh, I think in the, in the community when it comes to recruiting, making sure all of the recruiters and your employees are on board with, how to address individuals when contacting them, for a position. I'm sure you'll start to see more and more of that on resumes.
Absolutely.
It's exciting. Times are changing. Ashley, thank you so much for joining Angelique and I today. I think what you shared is very valuable, and I think you can really help the global community, companies wanting to learn how to build diversity programs to be inclusive in their environment. So thank you for sharing pieces that you've learned, and you come from a line of diversity and inclusion. Your mom was amazing. I had the honor of reporting up through her at Medtronic myself, and she truly is one of the most inspiring women I've ever met. So
yeah, I
see that in you.
It's been a pleasure, Ashley. The conversation is very much enjoyable. I'm excited for people to hear this. I'm excited for people to know who you are, who don't already know who you are, to follow you. And so, I've learned a lot. I think that, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. So you're also inspiring us here at ATR. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, it's been a pleasure. And ATR, I truly thank you as well, because I learned a lot about how to recruit and how to be a diverse woman in corporate America, in an agency setting at ATR. Truly wonderful training grounds, great organization, and a wonderful supplier as well. So thank you.